My stepkids posted online that I'm a leech living off their mom. So I handed them every single bill. Now they're paying for the truth themselves. Don't forget to subscribe and share your experiences below. Let's get started. In a blended family, kindness doesn't always earn you respect. Sometimes love needs to hurt before it gets heard. I used to think that showing up, being present, covering the bills, and swallowing pride was what made a good man. A good father. A good husband. I thought time would soften the edges, that consistency would win over defiance. I was wrong. My name's Ben, 42. I live with my wife, Hannah, in a quiet suburb outside Seattle, where the streets curl into cul-de-sacs, where neighbors wave and then return to their curated loneliness. Our house looks neat from the curb. A line of hedges I trim every Sunday. A porch swing I built myself with Lily one summer. Fresh paint, double-glazed windows, a roof that doesn't leak. Inside, it's different. Not chaos exactly, worse. A low hum of disrespect that never stops buzzing. Not loud enough to scream over, just steady enough to erode something inside you over time. Like rust. I have 2 kids. Lily's 10, Noah's 8. They're quiet, cautious, still unsure what to call this version of home. They carry their mother's absence like a shadow that follows them room to room. She died when Noah was 5, ovarian cancer. Fast and cruel. He doesn't remember much. Just the smell of her shampoo. The sound of her voice humming through the walls. Lily remembers more. Too much. When I met Hannah, I thought I was getting a second chance. She was strong, gentle in ways I hadn't seen before. She smiled with her eyes. Made space in the world for me and the kids when I didn't know how to ask for it. Her girls, Ava and Zoe, were already teenagers. Ava was 11 then, Zoe 9. Grieving in their own way but more alive than mine. They had this confidence, this loudness that I mistook for resilience. Now Ava's 16. Zoe's 14. And that loudness isn't resilience. It's something else. Started small. They'd ignore me when I asked them to put their dishes in the sink. Roll their eyes when I reminded them to take off their shoes before walking through the living room. I'd come home from a 10-hour shift and find the kitchen trashed. Cereal boxes left open, milk warm on the counter, wrappers stuffed behind the couch cushions. When I asked them to clean up, they'd smirk. Or worse, say nothing. "You're not our dad," Zoe said once, without even turning from her phone. "You don't get to tell us what to do." I laughed it off that first time. Told myself it was teenage stuff. That tone would shift with time. But it didn't. It got colder. More deliberate. Ava started calling me Ben instead of Dad. She said it like a curse. Like my name tasted bitter in her mouth. I'd be in the middle of reminding them about curfew, and she'd cut me off. "You're not my father. If I want rules, I'll ask my dad." Her dad, Tom. The man who left Hannah when Zoe was still in diapers. The one who skipped child support payments half the year and sent iPads instead of apologies. The one who showed up at birthdays late and left early, always with a new girlfriend in tow. But somehow, to them, he's sacred. Untouchable. They defend him like he's still in the room. Like his absence is a virtue I can't replicate. I remember once, about a year ago, Ava came home with a busted phone. Dropped it in the school parking lot. I took her to the store, bought her a replacement the same day, paid out of pocket. She didn't thank me, just stared at the screen like it was her right. 2 days later, I overheard her on the phone with Tom, giggling, saying, "I knew he'd buy it. He always does. Not Ben, not Dad. Every time they wanted something, rides, new shoes, makeup, cash, it came through me. And every time I tried to assert even the smallest rule, they'd remind me I wasn't real. That Tom had the final word. And Hannah? She'd look away. She'd say, "They're just going through a phase." Or, "It's hard for them, you know? You're not their dad." And then she'd expect me to keep paying the electric bill. To keep showing up to parent-teacher meetings like some faceless donor. I let it slide over and over. Told myself it would change. That love just takes time. But love without respect isn't love. The servitude. And I was serving a family that treated me like a mistake. I remember one night in particular. Lily had just fallen asleep on the couch next to me. Noah was upstairs, drawing. I was scrolling through the utility bills on my laptop, water, heat, groceries, adding up a month's worth of thankless giving. Ava came in, dropped her backpack in the hallway, and without even looking at me, asked, "When are you giving Mom money for the girls' winter clothes?" Giving. Not, "Can we talk?" Not, "Would you mind?" Like I was a bank. No interest, no gratitude, no return. But I nodded, said, "I'll take care of it," because I always did. And then, just a few weeks ago, I saw something I wasn't supposed to. Ava had posted a photo online, a selfie taken in her room. I don't follow her, but someone from work sent it to me. His daughter goes to the same school. In the caption, she'd written, "Living in this house like a parasite's guest. Can't wait to move out and live with someone who actually matters." The photo had likes, comments. Zoe had tagged a few friends. Parasite, that's what she called me. A man who had paid for her braces, her books, her gas money. A man who'd spent years grinding through double shifts so she wouldn't feel second class. A man who made sure her school trips were paid on time, who drove her to her first job interview, who taught her how to check her tire pressure. And now I was the parasite. I stared at that post for an hour. The words burned into my eyes like afterimages. I didn't confront her. I didn't show Hannah. I didn't even screenshot it. I just closed my phone, turned off the light, and sat in the dark. I sat there for a long time, and for the first time since moving into that house, I felt something new. Not anger, not sadness, something colder. Clarity. I realized that tolerating disrespect is the same as encouraging it. That kindness, when met with contempt, becomes a weakness they learn to exploit. That night I didn't sleep. That night I stopped lying to myself. I wasn't part of this family. I was just its wallet. They made me invisible. That's what stung most. Not the insults, not even the rejection, but how completely they could look through me. How easily they erased me from the walls I painted, the furniture I fixed, the floors I vacuumed after their chaos. Ava and Zoe didn't just ignore my rules. They didn't acknowledge that I had the right to speak at all. If I asked them to be home by 10, they stayed out until midnight. If I told them phones stayed out of the dinner table, they laughed, scrolled louder, eyes never lifting. I tried every door. Patience. Calm redirection. Joint family meetings where I let them speak first, hoping respect could be grown like a garden if you watered it with enough tolerance. But they came armed with silence. Or sarcasm. "You're not our real dad," Ava said one morning, brushing past me in the hallway. She didn't even look at me, just tossed it out like a receipt she no longer needed. It was a Wednesday. I remember because the water heater had broken the night before and I was up until 2 a.m. repairing it. I hadn't showered. My back ached. I was standing there holding a wrench. And that's when she said it. Not our real dad. It wasn't even cruel. That's what made it worse. It was mechanical. Default. Like a protocol she'd been trained in. Zoe started parroting the same lines. "You can't ground us," she'd mutter under her breath. "You're not even blood." They always said it when Hannah wasn't in the room. Always just low enough that if I snapped, I'd be the villain. Always with smirks curled just slightly at the edge. One night, Hannah and I argued. Not about them, about groceries of all things. I mentioned the cost creeping up, how they added things to the list I never approved: $14 almond butter, vegan protein powders, organic hair products. She brushed it off. "They're growing girls. Let them live a little." I said, "They don't live a little. They live like everything costs nothing." That didn't go over well. "Don't take your frustration with them out on me," she snapped. "You knew what this was when we got married. Blending families isn't easy." I remember the way she said it, like I had signed up for a messy job and should have expected to be spit on while I worked. But I didn't sign up for silence, for mockery, for being treated like a ghost in the house I paid for. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself it was just a phase. Teenagers test limits. Maybe in a year or two we'd find common ground. Maybe they'd mature. Instead, they escalated. I caught Ava sneaking out once, climbing out her window after midnight, She didn't even flinch when I stopped her at the side gate. Just rolled her eyes and said, "You gonna call the cops? Or just lecture me like some bootleg dad?" The next morning, when I brought it up to Hannah, she sighed. "I'll talk to her." But I knew what that meant. A soft warning. A slap on the wrist. A gentle, "He's trying his best. Ava, just be patient with him." They didn't need patience. They needed consequences. But I was the only one interested in cause and effect. A few weeks later, it all came to a head. I came home from work, tired, head pounding, and Lily was crying in the living room. She had found something online on TikTok or Instagram, one of those plague-ridden platforms Ava lived on. She showed it to me through tears. A video, just a 15-second clip. Ava, standing in front of the bathroom mirror, doing some viral dance I didn't recognize. Zoe filming her, giggling behind the camera. And over the top of it, in bright white text, POV. Your mom married a parasite and now you're stuck living in a house where the thermostat is locked at 68. Hashtagged. Hashtag not my dad, hashtag freeloading fail, hashtag stepclown. It had hundreds of likes. Comments too. Some of her friends had replied. "Ew, who is he? LMAO, she said parasite skull. I'd run away FR. They posted it while I was out buying groceries for dinner. Chicken thighs, broccoli, almond butter. I watched it twice. 3 times. I didn't say anything. I didn't yell. I didn't even blink. I just sat there on the edge of the couch, hands folded in my lap. Lily leaned into me, her little hands shaking. "Why did they say that, Dad?" That broke me. Not the words Ava wrote. Not even the laughter from strangers. But that question. Why did they say that? As if there was something wrong with me. As if I had done something to deserve the venom. Hannah came home 20 minutes later. I told her to come sit. I showed her the video. Her face went pale. Then red. Then pale again. She didn't cry. Didn't gasp. She just sat there in silence. When it ended, she stood up and walked upstairs. No words. No apology. No confrontation. Just a closed bedroom door. I thought maybe she'd talk to them. Maybe something would change. Nothing did. Ava and Zoe didn't mention the video. They didn't take it down. They just posted more. Inside jokes I wasn't invited to. Memes about stepdads who think they matter. Videos mocking house rules, curfews, my voice. I became content. Their followers laughed. And Hannah? She said nothing. That was when I realized. Silence isn't neutrality. It's complicity. She wasn't trying to fix it because she didn't see it as broken. She had chosen comfort over confrontation. She'd decided that peace in the moment was worth the long-term rot. I was the one paying for everything. But I was also the one paying the price. Every insult, every smirk, every eye roll Hannah ignored. That was interest accruing on a debt she never intended to pay. And I'd had enough. That night, after they went to bed, I stood in the kitchen and stared at the calendar on the wall. There were little notes scribbled in pink ink. Zoe's cheer dues due 17th. Ava needs new cleats, ask Ben. Call about braces payment plan. They didn't even hide it. Ask Ben. I took that calendar down, ripped it in half, dropped it in the trash with the rest of the leftovers no one had thanked me for. Then I walked upstairs and sat at my desk. I opened my browser, logged into every account I had ever created to support this household. Bills, subscriptions, autopays, insurance, streaming services, the family phone plan. I didn't cancel anything. Not yet. But I made a list. Every service Ava and Zoe used without thinking. Every comfort they enjoyed on my dime. And I wrote one thing at the top of the page. They say I'm not a real dad. Let's see what happens when a fake dad stops paying real bills. I didn't yell. I didn't lecture. I didn't sit them down and try to explain the concept of gratitude to teenagers who thought sarcasm was currency. I just opened my laptop and started the audit. Every line item that led to their comfort, each dollar they never saw but always spent. I traced it, highlighted it, labeled it, and then I began transferring ownership. First was the cell plan. Ava's iPhone had the highest data usage in the family. Hundreds of gigs every month for TikToks, FaceTimes, gossip sent in disappearing texts. She never once asked what plan she was on. Never thanked me for the coverage. That ended. I ported her number out of my account and into her own. Same with Zoe. Their phones buzzed at the dinner table the next day. Your number has been successfully transferred. I waited. They didn't say a word. Not to me. But Ava turned her phone over slowly, frowning. Zoe bit her lip. Step 1. Then I moved on to streaming services. Hulu, Netflix, Spotify Premium. I changed passwords, reset emails, canceled auto-renewals tied to my bank account. When they tried logging in that night, the screen greeted them with login errors and payment request forms. They asked Hannah, of course. She asked me. I said, I'm not paying for things they don't respect. If they want those services, they can pay or ask their real dad. Silence. Not agreement. Not resistance. Just silence. Next came the insurance. The car Ava used on weekends, registered under my name. Insurance under my policy. I called the provider and removed her. She hadn't had an accident yet, but I knew how reckless she was with things she didn't own. It was only a matter of time. Then I opened a new tab and removed Zoe from the family dental plan. She'd missed 2 appointments in a row. Brushed it off both times. When the third notice came in the mail, I called the clinic and told them she'd need a new guardian listed. I printed out the updated forms and left them on the kitchen counter. Highlighted. Please provide new responsible party. No one touched them for 3 days. Step by step, I dismantled the illusion of endless support. The warm fog they had lived in for years, the soft, invisible cocoon I'd built around them, began to thin. I didn't stop there. Utilities, internet, electricity, gas, water, all in my name. I opened a new utility account, a dummy account, assigned Ava and Zoe as responsible parties. Legally, they were minors, so the bills would go to Hannah. But I made it clear to her in one clipped sentence. If they want adult privileges, they can face adult bills. She didn't argue. Not then. But I saw the tension start to show. The lines around her mouth deepened. She was beginning to understand what I was doing, and what it meant, because I wasn't punishing them. I was holding up a mirror, and what they saw staring back terrified them. Ava was the first to crack. 3 days after the phone transfer, she stormed into the living room holding her iPhone like it had betrayed her. What the hell, Ben? She snapped. I can't call anyone. Says I'm out of minutes. This is abuse. I didn't look up from my laptop. No, Ava. It's responsibility. You're on your own plan now. You'll need to pay your bill. I'm 16. You're also grown enough to call me a parasite in public. Grown enough to mock my rules. Grown enough to act like you don't need me. So act grown. Her face turned scarlet. She looked to Hannah, who stood behind her, frozen. When her mother said nothing, Ava stormed upstairs. That night, Zoe tried to watch her favorite show. The password didn't work. Then she tried Spotify. Blocked. She came to me quiet, unsure. Did you change the Netflix password? She asked. I didn't look up. Yes. Can I have it? No. She blinked. Why not? I closed the laptop. Finally looked her in the eye. Because you said I'm not your father. And only fathers pay for daughters. I'm not footing the bill for people who spit on me. Her eyes welled up. She turned and left without a word. But it wasn't just tech. Their world was built on hidden supports. Every click, every ride, every meal. Now those supports were falling away. Ava's car keys vanished from the hook by the door. I kept them in my coat pocket. Zoe's school iPad, which had been purchased on my card, was due for repair. I refused. When Hannah confronted me, I told her simply, I'm not their dad. Remember? That's what they've said. So let their real dad pick up the slack. And then I made one final call. To Tom. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten. I simply said, you're about to get a few calls. Your daughters need car insurance, phone coverage, school supplies. I've been handling it for 5 years. I'm done now. They're yours again. He chuckled at first. That smug, dismissive laugh I'd heard once before at a school event. Then I kept going. And if you think I'm bluffing, wait until the tuition bills come due. Wait until Ava can't register for her SATs because the cards declined. Wait until Zoe finds out orthodontics cost more than concert tickets. His tone changed. You can't do this, man. They're kids. No, they're your kids. Click. By the end of the week, the house was cracking. Not physically, but spiritually. The girls were quieter. The mockery stopped. So did the noise. Ava started picking up after herself. Zoe stopped leaving dishes in the sink. They didn't apologize, but they noticed. That's the thing about entitlement. It only thrives when it's fed. Starve it, and suddenly people remember manners. But this wasn't about courtesy. This was about value. About proving, finally, that I was not a shadow. That behind every ungrateful word was a man holding their world together with a dozen passwords and 1,000 unspoken acts of labor. I didn't need thanks, but I would not be insulted. One night I came home late. Hannah was waiting in the kitchen, arms crossed. "We need to talk," she said. "About what?" "About the girls. About how you're handling this." "I'm not handling anything. I've stopped handling it." She sighed. "They're scared. They should be." She didn't expect that. Her jaw tensed. "You're making them feel like nothing." I nodded. "Good. That's how they made me feel. For years." Silence stretched between us. She finally said it. "They miss you." I turned away, washed my hands at the sink. "No," I said. "They miss what I gave them, not me." She didn't respond, because she knew it was true, and truth finally had a price. They didn't apologize right away. Of course not. Pride dies slowly. And in this house, it had grown thick and wild, choking the air between us. Ava still kept her chin high, but it wavered now. Zoe hovered near the kitchen when I made coffee, pretending to need something from the drawer. Hannah had stopped trying to mediate. Something about the silence between us had changed. It was no longer cold, it was weight-bearing. A week passed. Then two. No shouting. No TikToks. No smirks at dinner. Just quiet tension. The power dynamic had flipped. They were still living here. Still eating the food I paid for. But they no longer took it for granted. The missing comforts. The dead phone lines. The broken streaming accounts. The unrenewed insurance. Spoke louder than any lecture could. And Tom? Tom lasted 3 days. 3 calls, 2 texts, and 1 tear-filled voicemail from Zoe before he ghosted again. He didn't have the funds. Didn't want the responsibility. He gave them just enough to keep the fantasy alive. A promise of a check that never came. By the 3rd week, the girls were nervous. Ava came home from school and quietly asked Hannah for gas money. Hannah hesitated, then looked at me across the kitchen. I didn't speak. I didn't have to. That night, Hannah sat me down at the dining table. The same one I'd sanded and stained myself, back when we were still pretending this family had a shared heartbeat. "I talked to Tom," she said. I waited. "He agrees the girls need to show some respect. He said if we can agree on a set of rules, clear expectations, he'll support them sticking to it." I nearly laughed. "Tom said that." She nodded. "He's not offering money, but he'll back our structure. Says it's time they understand who's really supporting them." "Structure," I echoed. She slid a piece of paper across the table. "Rules. Handwritten. Respectful language. Chores. Shared responsibility. Basic acknowledgement of my role. Will you restore things if they agree to this?" she asked. "The phones, the insurance, the car. Everything." I leaned back. The room was quiet except for the sound of the fridge humming. "I'll restore what's deserved," I said. "Not what's expected." She didn't fight me on it. The next day, Ava came to me first. Not dramatic. Not with tears. Just present. Real. "I didn't know how much you did," she said quietly, eyes on the floor. "I thought it just happened. I didn't think it was coming from you." I didn't respond. "I'm sorry," she added, and this time her voice cracked. "For the video. For what I said. I didn't mean it. I was trying to be funny. I nodded slowly. Funny costs something, I said. That's what you learned. She nodded too. Then Zoe came. Later that evening. No speech. Just a hug. She whispered, "I'm sorry," into my chest like it was a secret she didn't want to escape. I didn't hug back at first. But after a moment, I put one hand on her shoulder. A week later, I restored their phones. But only after they set up their own accounts, prepaid, monitored, capped. I reactivated their streaming access, but only through a shared account tied to the family rule sheet. One slip, one insult, one lapse in respect. And it was gone again. They understood now. They weren't scared. They were aware. Finally, for the first time, the house held balance. Not peace, not quite, but balance. Dinner was no longer a battlefield. The girls didn't fawn over me, but they acknowledged me. When I spoke, they looked up. When I asked for help, they responded. Even Hannah changed, no more middlewoman translations. She expected them to respect me directly. And Tom? He stayed silent, like always, but they stopped talking about him like a savior. They stopped using his absence as a weapon. It had finally become what it always was, a void. And now they understood what it had cost me to fill it. The night everything finally settled, I was in the garage changing the oil in the family car. Noah wandered in with a wrench in hand. Lily sat on the steps watching. Zoe walked past, paused, then doubled back and asked if I needed help. I nodded, handed her a rag. Ava stood in the doorway and didn't roll her eyes. It was the smallest moment, but it meant everything. Later that evening, I sat alone in the dark of the living room. Bourbon in my glass. The house breathing soft around me. This wasn't a victory. Not exactly. No one threw a parade for boundaries. But something had shifted. Something had been rebuilt. And not all of it would crumble again. I think of all the years I spent trying to buy peace. How many times I absorbed the blow to keep the illusion alive. I thought giving would make me loved. That sacrifice earned devotion. But love without respect is a burden. And sacrifice, when unnoticed, becomes rot. They had to feel the absence of comfort to appreciate its source. I had to remove myself before they could see me at all. Now they walk differently, not because they fear me, but because they understand me. Finally, so here I sit, not as a hero, not as a villain, just a man who stopped pretending that unconditional love had no limits. Was I too harsh? Maybe. But tell me, if someone spat in your face while living off your name, your labor, your patience, how long would you keep feeding their comfort? How long would you let them call you nothing while taking everything? How long before you handed them the bill? I did what I had to do. I taught them what absence feels like. And in that void, they found truth. So now I ask you, was I wrong to pull back the things they took for granted? Or was it the only way to make them see the man behind the mask of endless giving? Because sometimes the only way they learn who you are is when you disappear.